good. Yields coming down. Market trying for 9 straight gains. There's a lot of buoyancy.
Yeah.
But then something you and I focus on, the oscillator. I know it seems like too simple to believe, but it is the sum total of everybody's thinking. And it's 7.2. Thank you to Bill Paul for giving it to us ahead of time, which is if things stay the same. But 7.2 is not a time where you can buy. You can't. You can only sell.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. That's our discipline, right? If the oscillator was minus 7% and the market was just down for 9 straight days, you'd expect us to be buying. Yeah, but it plays both ways, and you have to stay disciplined. So we look to lighten up on things. I know yesterday, we talk about also selling bad with the good.
Right.
Exit Estee Lauder. That's down again today.
Yeah, that was
3-4%.
just an awful decision by us, and we had to eat it.
Yeah. But it's also about protecting.
Right. We didn't want to subsidize. I mean, look, you can go sell some. We're joking about selling some Alphabet, which is a winner, of course, even though on given days it may not be. But yeah. I do think that the Morgan Stanley cut is emblematic of what we like Morgan Stanley, but we have too much. I feel, and we have to go back and forth on this. Maybe Abbott. Abbott's got this negative, which is the Lilly. We own Lilly, of course, with tirzepatide. But more important, Abbott's going up huge. And I know that we have a trial come up in September, and I want the optionality to buy some Abbott if it goes down.
Yeah.
So maybe the solution is to sell some Abbott today.
Yep. So we'll see here. And then look, with Morgan Stanley, it's not really a love stock. He actually had, during just the peak of the sell-off a couple of weeks ago on the recession fears and the end carry trade, you had Mike Mayo at Wells Fargo downgrade Morgan Stanley to underweight. Now, I disagree with the call.
I do too.
A lot of it's valuation based, still has a good yield, good buyback. But you're fighting against that. So stocks made a nice move.
So that 3%
the 52-week high is 105, 106. So back above 100 here, trading 100 shares.
Preserve capital. Yeah. 7.2 means preserve capital. Palo Alto, we're not preserving capital. We're letting it run, even though I would like to lighten up.
We would have trimmed ahead of the quarter.
I would have liked to lighten up right here too.
It was a better than feared result. I mean, you had Nikesh on last night. Revenue's good, earnings good, billings are good, although he's going to tell you don't look at billings.
Right.
Just the platformization wins, multiple 8-figure deals, 1 9-figure expansion. They added 90 new platformizations in Q4. That's up from 65 in Q3. So over 1,000 total platformizations, amongst their 5,000 largest customers. Guidance for fiscal year, revenue was good, earnings was good. RPO a little light, but 19 to 20% still pretty solid there.
But I still think you got to let some go. I mean, look at this. This is parabolic. I don't like parabolic.
Yeah, it's all the way back pretty much from the beginning of the platformization. I do want to point out, Morgan Stanley says the trough now is behind them. They think the top line will accelerate through the fiscal year. AI security over $200 million in annual recurring revenue. So it was a good quarter.
Yeah, and that $200 million ARR, we played that tape. I think it was very good. I would point out that one thing that he didn't do was slag CrowdStrike, and yet I believe, as much as I like George Kurz, I think there's going to be a lot of business coming his way just because you want to be able to say, hey, listen, I departed from CrowdStrike.
Yeah.
I haven't think CrowdStrike was there by the grace of God. I don't think CrowdStrike did anything really wrong, but if you're Delta, you sure think they did.
Yeah, well, I know in the call he talked about they roll out these updates on a more subscale.
Well, I mean, George was trying to roll it out. I mean, the idea was roll it out in New Zealand and Australia, and you see how it works for a couple hours. But they did it too quickly. Yeah. Had they rolled out and not done it in lightning speed, I think we would have seen that, wow, this thing is just clogging these up. Nikesh did laugh at me when I said that Apple was hoping that they could become second source because Apple didn't get hacked. Mm-hmm. But Nikesh is very ironic and tough.
Not part of the outage, different operating system. But
I like Nikesh. He's a little creative. I mean, creative in the sense that he did the Friday evening conference call.
That was last summer. Yeah. And the people, I mean, look, a lot of times I think when you have these, the stock's prone to some big swings during earnings. So, there's always some fear into the result. I mean, we ourselves, Evercore ISI put a tactical underperform into earnings.
And you see what they did today?
Well, they had to take it off, obviously, but it creates some shorts.
But that worried me. It was a very authoritative piece about channel checks and what the story of the business was. It was wrong.
But I do want to move, though, to Eli Lilly. You mentioned it earlier. It was big news today. Their SURMOUNT-1, it was a 3-year study. It showed tirzepatide, that's the obesity drug, reduced the risk of progression of type 2 diabetes by 94% among adults with prediabetes and obesity or overweight compared to placebo. It's a really big deal because 1 in 3 adults in the United States have prediabetes. So I guess the thinking here is, and Lilly will have to work with regulators, but could they potentially expand the indication for this, get more people on these drugs?
Well, I mean, I think that one of the things that David Ricks, the CEO, made the point of was this thing's so good, maybe the payers have to just pay it. It'll save the system a fortune.
Right.
Now, that's very important because remember, there are a lot of people who feel they charge too much, but if they change the system of fortune, then if you're United Health, you want to reimburse for it.
And I know in your interview on Squawk on the Street, you talked about all the different molecules they're working on, whether it's the pill, whether it's the triple acting, right? The dual acting tirzepatide, retatrutide, that's triple G. They're working on that as well in late stage.
Didn't you feel great? I mean, trials. I felt like whatever Viking has, whatever Amgen has, whatever Roche has, it's not as good as what Lilly has.
I felt that way for a while. I mean, of course, too, it's the manufacturing. I've said it before, but I think also the manufacturing leadership.
Now, there are going to be wags, so to speak, who say it didn't take out as high. It has to, in order to avoid what's known as the double top, which is very dreaded.
Okay.
It's got to blow through 966. So just keep that in mind.
Well, it's made a nice run. Another one making a nice run still is AMD. After that, people are calling it an acqui-hire, not an acquisition, but essentially they're buying ZT Systems, and then they're going to sell the manufacturing part, but they're going to retain about 1,000 engineers under the idea that it will help them sell more GPUs in the future.
Lisa Su made the point to me early on when we were speaking offline that they need these engineers very badly. Do you know that people are paying 20, 25 million for experts in AI to join their staff? Well, this is 1,000 experts.
Their other acquisition too, Silo, that was really it was acquiring and almost like an AI think tank.
So remember, they don't have good training. They have good inference. Training meaning they need more data. And they need to be able to identify what's the important data and what's valuable, and they don't have it.
And training, you need these big clusters, right?
Oh my God!
Tons of chips that are all working together.
Right, and she would tell you ZT is about big clusters. It makes it so that they're competitive. It's a very important deal.
All right, why don't we go to the rapid fire now? Starting off with Lowe's. You did have an earnings beat, revenue soft. They cut the full year outlook, but the stock's hanging in here.
Stock's hanging in because of the Federal Reserve. No one wants to sell the stock ahead of Jackson Hole, where they say, listen, we do have to cut. If you have to cut, then it's probably the best coiled spring there is.
Right, kind of like what we've seen throughout with owning Stanley, Black & Decker.
Yeah, and when I look at, I talk to Marv, when you go back and forth with Marv, what does he say? Listen, we really aren't, we need to have housing better. We need more transactions. Fed lowers, we get transactions.
Medtronic raises its full year outlook.
I'm not sure about this one. I know that Medtronic's been one of my faves. I don't know how much more we can do this. They did a lot of neuromodulation, which is very powerful. And they're the only guys who are really doing stuff in neuro other than Bristol Myers.
Yeah. You got Amer Sports rising better than expected quarter. They own Wilson.
I think we all feel that this is one that has been a disappointment. Maybe it's finally, showing some life.
Vornado Realty double upgrade to buy.
It was so important because Vornado is the one company that people just said, look, it's a bridge too far to think that city real estate can come back. Not any longer. They're talking about really good leasing numbers in some of the more problematic buildings. And this tells me, like SL Green, that if you really think that the inner city is falling apart, you should look at SL Green and Vornado. It's not happening. It's good.
And Abercrombie named positive catalyst idea over at
8% short position. The company has been money over and over and over again. Hey, by the way, let me just throw in TJX. I did not like Matt Boss's note, meaning I agree with Matt Boss's note. Matt Boss did a ton of work on TJX, saying that he believes that the end of the quarter just not that great. Just keep that in mind. I think it's terrific. But I did mention to Jeff, I would probably let some go if we weren't restricted. So I want to pass that. Earnings tomorrow, up 20% for the year. That's a big move. This is Jim Cramer with Jeff Marks for the morning meeting, exclusively for the CNBC Investment.